here.
Thank you. We've had a lot of comedy these last 7 weeks, and I thought it might be nice as a little bit of a sorbet, if you will. This last evening, to inject a little bit of seriousness, I'll be reading a passage from my novel, Beyond the Wheat Fields. In 1971, it was shortlisted for the PEN/Faulkner Award. The particular passage, I think, is appropriate to the evening. Chapter 1, The Junction. August 1961, it was the summer of my 17th year. A gold moon rose gracefully that night, its silver light dancing on the ponds and pools of my father's guppy farm. I was packing my bags, bound to State U on a badminton scholarship. My father had hoped I might stay on, but the tedious life of a guppy farmer was not for me. I wanted adventure. I had just packed my tea kettle and the last of my bath salts when the night erupted in an orgy of shouts and sirens. A circus train had jumped the track, splitting the night air with the squeals and moans of man and beast and twisted steel. The next morning I trekked out to where the wreckage lay. In the evening, some animals had escaped to the woods. A stunningly large-breasted dwarf approached me, asked me to join the men in the search line. She thrust a poster in my face. "Here's what we're looking for," she said. On it was a black monster, fangs and furious eyes, her thick black arms bound by chains to a red platform with a small gold sign that read, "She-Ape." Here was my adventure. Marching through the woods, I but a boy, I quickly fell behind. Distracted, I slipped on some loose gravel and tumbled into a mossy ravine, skinning my knees on the way down. I heard a stirring in the brush, and looked to see two dark eyes staring at me. Sheba. Her gaze was steady, her body coiled, ready, but her eyes were strong and probing. I was afraid to move. As was the custom then, I wore a banana as a hat. I took it off and gave it to her. She ate, curling her lips into a small circle and extending a hand. She motioned to my knees. "Yes, they do hurt quite a bit," I said. Spreading her mouth wide and nodding her head, she raised her arms. "Yes," I said, "I guess I am a little clumsy." We both laughed. She was no monster. Her hands were large, not delicate but tender. I still remember how cool they felt as they rubbed across my thighs and came to rest on my red and throbbing knees. "Not so very different," I said. She bowed her head and exhaled a soft, murmuring hoot. "Not so very different indeed." She stood and crept closer, crouched above me. Her whispering hoots became steady and rhythmic, like a prayer, an incantation, a spell. Quickly she was upon me, her small pendulous breasts undulating with every move, shredding my clothes, pinning me to the moist and fertile moss. Briefly she stood, I glimpsed her lady flower, rich and plump, like a lychee nut. It danced for a moment, then fell on me like a hammer made of sugar wrapped in velvet, glazed with a slippery slime of confectioner's syrup. Her passion was strong and willful, like a mongoloid child. The moments became a blur of sensations, her taut and hairy thighs, the taste of her fingers in my mouth, the distant sound of a rock dove calling, "Coo-loo, coo-loo." On and on, the velvet hammer fell on me, her flesh anvil. Thrashing, roiling, grinding, sweating, bending, stretching, screaming, quivering, and a little bit of crying. The frothy day moved to a crescendo and then a short and all too sudden pop. I saw the dart sink into her breast. Watched her eyes as the passion turned to rage when she saw the men. "Sheba!" I cried. "Sheba, no!" But she would not be swayed. Rising to fight them, she charged the men, burst through them, bowling them over, charging through the woods beyond to the open wheat fields. I followed. Pop, pop, pop. More shots. But this time, there were no darts. There were no darts. There were no darts. Kneeling beside her body, I touched her lips. I, a boy, becoming a man. She, an ape, more man than I would ever be. More woman than I would ever know. Chapter 2, The Lonely Shepherd.